Now let's dive into your brand voice. And this is another one of those things that once you know about it, you'll see it a lot more as well. So I want you to really take the time to establish your own unique brand voice. So what is a coaching brand voice? A brand voice is the distinct personality and style of language that a coach uses to communicate with their audience, create that connection that we all want, and maintain consistency. So there's a lot of different types of brand voices. However, I boiled it down to this top 7 so that you have a good checklist to pick from, right? So just know, like everything else, I'm a believer that there's not one way to create a brand. There's not one way to create a coaching business. You have choices, right? So I want to share with you the 7 and then be able to demonstrate who has these type of voices so that you can pick one that is your main brand voice, or in some cases it's a hybrid where it's 1 and 2 type of things, right? We can all use all of these components in our brand voice, but we want 1 or 2 to be the primary so that when our clients hear our voice, and this is our physical voice, what you're hearing me speak right now, as well as your writing voice of how they read and the language that you use in your social media posts and your blog posts, in everything, your emails and whatnot. So brand voice is also part of your brand identity. Okay. So the 7 types of brand voices. The first one is there's an authentic brand voice. So the authentic brand voice is someone who comes across as genuine, transparent, relatable. And this voice communicates honesty and sincerity, and it creates trust and connection with the audience. So there's an authenticity to a brand voice. The next one is a professional voice. So this is more formal, it's authoritative, it's knowledgeable. This voice conveys expertise and competence. It's ideal for brands and industries, like if you're a coach in the finance world, law, healthcare, that type of thing. So professional is a brand voice. Inspirational, probably the most common in what I'm seeing in coaches. However, like myself, inspirational isn't one of my main brand voices. I'll give inspiration here and there, but no one would describe me as an inspirational brand voice. But a lot of coaches are. So inspirational is really motivational, it's uplifting, and it's aspirational. The voice inspires and encourages the audience to reach their full potential, often using powerful stories and imagery in their language. So they're going to be the ones that describe not the flower, but also the smell of the beautiful yellow tulip, that da-da-da-da-da. Like it's very colorful. Inspirational is just very painting a picture, and it's used to move people, okay? And, you can kind of see this in different speakers. I'm sure you've heard as well when they're sharing from stage or sharing their message. They all kind of fit within some of these brand voices. The next brand voice is conversational. So this is a casual, friendly, approachable. This voice feels like a conversation with a friend, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. Conversational is one that is one of my main ones, right? So it's when I do my blog or when I do my podcast, I want it to sound like a conversation between 2 friends while someone's listening in a car, right? Conversational is how I love to write, that kind of thing. So conversational is a type of brand voice. If that resonates with you, awesome. So if any of these resonate with you, and is typically how you also can show up as well. So as you're thinking about these, and maybe and as I show examples, there may be people and coaches in your industry already that have that very authentic brand voice. So if that's not your core, or it's not something you're an absolute yes on, maybe pick a different one just so you stand out a little bit more too. Just an idea. So bold is another brand voice. So we all know those bold speakers, those voices that are confident, they're assertive, they're daring. This voice takes risk. They stand out from a crowd. They challenging conventions, and they spark conversation. When we hear the bold voice, we're like, oh, I can't believe they said that. I might have been thinking it, but they said it. Bold is a brand voice, right? Humorous. So we all know the person who's playful and witty, and their voice is funny, things that come out, and they share stories that are funny. And they can also be humorous and also professional as well, right? So this is what I mean. This is, you could have a hybrid voice, but we want to pick which one we're going to lead with, one or two, so that we're driving the brand behind it. So humor, they use, their voice has humor. It's witty. It's memorable. It's engaging. It's fun, right? One brand voice. And then the last one is educational. So informative, clear, instructional. This voice focuses on teaching and guiding the audience, providing valuable insights and knowledge. So I say if I had to pick my brand voice, it would go between conversational and educational, right? With, of course, sometimes I'm professional. I do my best to be authentic. Sometimes I'm inspirational. I can be bold, I can be funny, but the ones that really feel in alignment with me would be conversational and educational. I definitely write very conversationally. And then I tend to, when I speak, more education. So it's probably my professor background, but, and there's a space for every type of coach and every type of brand voice. All right, so let's take a look at some example brand voices. And I bet when you see an image, you can instantly think how they show up, right? So let's start with Tony Robbins, probably one of the most prime examples of in our space for a brand voice. So when you look at Tony Robbins and you hear his brand voice, he definitely comes across as, in my opinion, inspirational and bold, right? So there's a lot of people who try to mimic Tony. No one can be Tony, but even his voice and that raspiness could be a totem in itself, right? So, but bold, inspirational. Is he authentic? Sure. Is he educational? Yes. But there's going to be specifics that are one or two that what we think of when we see them. Okay. So Tony Robbins, very bold, very inspirational. That's how he moves, he transforms, and all that kind of stuff. And of course, he educates and he can be conversational. He's funny, but like the leading ones are the ones that we want to think about for your brand voice as well. What ones do we want to lead with? Which one or two? And then we look at Brene Brown. So right next to Tony is Brene Brown. She comes across, she's very educational. And I think because she was a professor as well. So that educational researcher, type of background. I see her as very authentic. You might see her as very inspirational, very conversational, that type of stuff. But when I think of Brene Brown, I think, there's an authenticity that we just trust her. And then maybe the educational piece, depending on her type of talk. And she's funny too. But, I don't look at Brene Brown and think, professional or bold. I think more authentic, and educational and maybe inspirational, right? So she has a specific brand voice. And then moving next to her is we have Alanya Fix My Life. I love that show, where she's a life coach and she goes in and to very tumultuous type of situations and has to, help transform families and relationships and stuff like that. So when I hear her brand voice, I think she's very bold, very inspirational as well, like very Tony Robbins-esque, right? So if you're in that space and you're like, oh, okay, if there's, people who are the bold and inspirational and you're more educational and funny, like that's totally fine. Like you should totally go the opposite way because there's space for you too, okay? So after her, we've got Rachel Hollis, Rachel Hollis comes across very, authentic in her, in her tone and all that kind of stuff. And she's very open with what's going on with her life. I also see her as inspirational. She's a great storyteller. So there is the funny aspect of that. So, but you may see some of these people totally different. That's fine. It's just a matter of, it's about being super intentional with the brand voice. And some of these people you might look at and be like, oh, I'm a fan or I'm not a fan. That's okay. Like all we're doing is taking a look at them as a case study in this so that you can learn, like when you have a brand voice, it definitely stands out, right? So let's go to the upper side here with Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey, to me, when I hear Dave Ramsey, I just hear straight up educational. He is educational about money. Yes, he can be funny, that kind of stuff. But when I look at and hear him from a brand voice, I see him as very educational. Okay. And then we've got like Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, right? We look at them and instantly smile because we know they're going to be completely funny and humorous, right? So there is some authenticity that comes along with them too. So, you know, you kind of, I just want to show you some different, a variety of different voices. And, you know, like I said, you may not completely agree with what I said. You may see other types of voices in them, which is fine. But regardless, you get to decide and put that stake in the ground of this is how they show up. And when they know the brand voice, which they all do, and they know how they want to write and communicate that way, as well as with their voice, it's a very powerful thing, especially from an unconscious, subconscious standpoint, which is what a lot of branding is how can we be recognized? How can we be seen and heard, right? So that you can build the authority that you want in your coaching business. So like I said, there's room for everyone. And there's, you know, these are the 7 brand voices. Are there more? Yes. So again, these are the ones that I want you to start with. However, if you feel like, you know what, my voice is more, you know, pick a word, that's fine too. So I want to create a system around figuring out your brand voice and have some fun with it. And then once you decide that, then it's about you showing up when you're writing copy or your emails or social media posts or speaking in front of a group or sharing a video, like being the brand voice. So walk that talk. Okay. Because if we don't decide what it is, then other people are going to decide for us. And we would rather lead that. And then that way you can create that consistency and have a system around it. And another thing with like ChatGPT and AI being so popular, it's really good to know if you're going to have them help you write something or whatever, you can tell them, this is my brand voice. My brand voice is write this and do it in a way that has a bold and authentic voice. And it will return that back to you as well to give you some starting grounds to, you know, edit and make it your own or what have you. So brand voice is that important. So now it's your turn to decide on what your brand voice is. Again, you can start with 1 or 2. If you have your own, that's okay. You can, you know, there's many types of brand voices out there. But the thing I want you to do is make it part of your brand identity. Everything I've taught you about building your coaching brand identity builds off of each other. And then when we have that and we're super intentional and strategic about it, we're going to build trust that much faster with those clients that we're meant to serve. All right. So up next, go ahead and check out the Brand in a Box plug and play templates. They're right below this video. See and look around and feel, use it for inspiration, use them as is, whatever you want to do. They are there for you to have the visuals and not be an issue or a roadblock in creating your brand. And then I've created the Build Your Brand Identity workbook as well, so that you can take everything you've learned and build out your brand identity workbook. And then once you have that, then it's a matter of sharing everything you've came up with. All right. So we don't want to just keep it in a workbook. We want to put it out there in the world. We want your brand to be out there and your moniker, your totems, all those things so that you can be super memorable as a coach and have a wait list of clients.